Okay, so this is patch 8.5. Caixa, I don't know how to judge Caixa. She's really short range, and she's got a lot of mobility. Right, so that won't matter if she is, like a jungler or something. You have champions like Kindred working the jungle, and they're shorter range than, an AD carry. But in the bot lane, like, for instance, Lucian is a short range AD carry with lots of mobility. I feel like she'd have to be pretty overtuned in order for her to work in the bot lane. Especially, her ultimate doesn't, I don't even completely understand what all of her abilities do. I wouldn't recommend playing this champion on release until people figure out, the itemization that she's supposed to go. Because, you'll probably run into something like what happened with Xayah when she was released. She was released and she was really strong, but everyone was building, the wrong items, and they didn't know that you were supposed to go, Essence Reaver first. So I would just wait a patch or two for Caixa to get, buffed or nerfed and the itemization to get locked down. Azir's losing quite a bit of damage throughout his entire laning phase. I don't think Azir's really a good pick below a certain, like a one-trick level. You have to be really good at this champion or just really high ranking in general and be able to play this champion. So I think those players are still going to be fine. Nobody else should really be playing Azir, though. Galio's mana nerfs, this is mostly just going to prevent him from doing Protobelt. Like, you go Protobelt, it's going to be too expensive now to use your Q. The cooldown nerf I don't think matters too much. It's 2 seconds, which is kind of lame, but like, he's just one-shotting people, only getting one rotation off a lot of times when you go AP. So it's just going to mean that you go, Rod of Ages or Abyssal Mask or something like that, as opposed to Protobelt first item, or that you're going to need some mana somewhere. Jin's getting buffs. I don't know if this matters. Jin scales a lot with, attack damage, and he's getting some attack damage buffs. It's really hard to say how Jin's going to do. Right now, the popular thing for AD carry is to play a hyper carry, like a Ginsu's Rageblade person, and you spike really early. And I think that power spike is just stronger than whatever Jin can do right now. So these numbers have to, make him a lot stronger for him to come back, I'd say. This W change where he can root off of any damage means he can just throw his Q, and then they get hit by the Q, they can get hit by the W or anything like that. Or even Jin can use his ultimate and then turn off his ultimate and throw a W. And that is actually really nice. This is the biggest, like the most nice change here. But it's hard to say with the damage numbers because Jin is so weird how he scales with damage. Nocturne, his healing goes up quite a bit. It might be that his early clear, he's going to be getting a ton more health now. Just 50% more than he did. If he has no clearing problems, where you can just sustain the entire jungle and just power farm, he might just reach a point where he's like a newer, better, Shyvana Master Yi. And then the 2 second, like the double refresh, it's just going to be, a little more sustain and damage in fights as well. So this passive thing really helps his clear, because you have to think like how many times you're going to be proccing this. You proc it like 1 or 2 times per camp, and so you're going to be getting, if you do just 3 camps, generally Nocturne is just going to clear his whole jungle. So you do all 6 camps, you're going to be proccing it maybe 2 times per camp. You're going to get 12 times 5, 60 health extra, which could be good. It might be the difference between being able to clear Krugs and all that. Well, plus it's per enemy hit, so yeah, you're just gonna get healed a lot more. Missile speed moving faster. It's harder to dodge. That's really nice. And then the ult lasts longer. Wait. Cool. Yeah, the ultimate lasting longer is also really powerful. The one thing about Nocturne ultimate is it allows you to dive the back line, and the front line doesn't know where you are. So it's just really good. Nocturne might come back, especially for lower ranks. Like, generally he's a champion that if you're allowed to just power farm and get to your ultimate, and then you get a kill with your ultimate, you just win the game, pretty much. the problem is a lot of the junglers right now, they just they pressure the lanes from like level 3. You know, they've got really good early pressure. They're not ultimate reliant, and Nocturne is really ultimate reliant. So yeah, you really have to depend on the enemy jungler and your teammates to kind of hold the line until you can hit level 6 and start picking up the things, picking up the game. So he's definitely really good, I'd say, for like platinum and below. In higher ranks where people are going to be playing champions that have more early pressure, Nocturne's going to be weaker because he can't really contest the early pressure as much. Olaf is getting some buffs. The damage on his E I don't think matters at all. The cooldown going down, like, it doesn't really matter. I think it's just going to be a small, like, you're going to notice you're going to win a little bit trades that you weren't going to win before. But most of these buffs I think help top lane. Olaf gains more total attack damage. It seems just that the top lane is going to be what's benefited, and especially like with the R, you can get Sterax and it goes even higher than it did before. It's hard to say what these are going to do. Olaf is already pretty good in top lane, and these are buffs, so he might be, you know, really strong in top lane, right? Like he might reach a good, you know, blind pickable spot where you just want to, you know, pick Olaf consistently. So I think he's definitely better top lane than he is jungle, and that's mainly what this is going to change. Like, I don't think he comes back into the jungle, even though they picked him the LCS, like, or the LCK like the other day, which is something. Rengar was shipped out really weak. Some players were having success with him. Yeah, some players that were just playing Rengar before, they play Rengar and they're still winning games, but a lot of people, generally, they're doing badly, whether it's they're playing Rengar incorrectly or the Rengar is actually just too weak. I think it's a little bit of both because people aren't familiar with you know, using the auto attack reset and stuff. So I don't know if these changes are going to be strong enough to bring him back. I probably would not play Rengar. I would not play Rengar until either he gets another buff or people figure out, you know, the itemization and how you're supposed to play him, because it's changed since crit Rengar was a thing before with the you know, Tiamat, Yomu's Static Shiv, Infinity Edge kind of build. It's hard to say what the best build is now with the introduction to Duskblade and stuff like that. Skirmishing Saber. Ryze, he's getting some damage nerfs. He gets quite a bit of a buff on the E for like the level 1, just kind of E the enemy down at level 1, but then the spread damage is getting a lot lower, so his wave clear goes down. Right now, it's the same thing as Azir. If you're good at this champion, you keep playing this champion. If you're not like proficient, like if you don't have like 50 games on Ryze and ranked, then just don't pick him up. A lot of these nerfs are just focused on, you know, how competitive it's going, because Ryze and Azir are the top contested picks for mid lane. Shyvana's getting some attack damage buffs. Nothing really changes. She's still a solid pick. It's kind of the same thing as Nocturne. You depend on your team to not fall behind early on while you just farm up. So I think Nocturne might be a little better than Shyvana. Shyvana is more of like a bruiser, though. Nocturne should just be built full damage and just try to assassinate people all game. Skarner nerfs aren't going to do anything. He's still the number one jungler, probably tied up there with Zac. Swain, the cooldown goes down by 2 seconds. I think that's actually huge because Swain's, if you just point blank Q somebody at level 1, it does like 132 damage. Most abilities at level 1 do about 80 or something like that. And Swain's does, you know, well way more than that, like 130 or something. Plus 100% of his AP ratio. So going down by 2 seconds means that he's just going to be able to use that, you know, maybe twice in a level 1 trade instead of only once, as well as be a lot more annoying in the early levels, because this thing much stronger early on. It scales down to just being a spammable ability. The increase in the radius is going to be really nice. It's going to make it a lot easier for you to just like lazily use it, but I don't know how much it's going to change. It's just going to be a lot harder to get out of it whenever you get hit by the snare. then they don't have to put it perfectly, which I think is cool. The radius was increased. Okay, so it's going to be easier to hit E. And it's going to be faster. And it's going to be less buggy. Wait. Demon Flare now passes through champions. Effect like Wind Wall. Swain's. Okay. So instead of being like a Vladimir E, where it stops on the first unit hit, it's just going to pass through everybody. I didn't know it stopped, but that's much better. It's much nicer because now you can't body block it. This is just going to make Swain a lot more consistent. I do think Swain is pretty strong. People don't play. I think he's definitely the case that people just don't play the champion correctly, and all of these are just really like light buffs to make him easier to use. And the stronger level 1 right here, I think he's a good top laner and a good mid laner. I think he can be picked into pretty much anyone, just because of how he's pretty safe actually. Tristana, she's getting her auto attack range nerfed early on and her rocket jump buffed. I don't think it matters. This doesn't change her power level at all. The 25 attack range isn't going to be punished hard enough. So she'll be the same. She'll be like, right behind Varus or right tied with Varus, depending on who you ask. Like Tristana and Varus are the top 80 carries right now. Twitch is getting some buffs. This is still, if you remember, last patch she was nerfed by 40 damage, and so this would just be minus 20 damage off of what he was when he was really good. They thought the press the attack buffs would make Twitch broken or something. I mean, it'll help. Twitch is pretty okay even with that nerf. He was just kind of weak, and his early game was even weaker than it should have been. And I think it's definitely playable. I see him a lot in the jungle as well as AD carry. Volibear is really strong right now with this knockup. They're just lowering the CC. He's still going to be the same champion. He's really a solid pick into any team. His early pressure in the jungle is pretty insane. He can even be picked top lane. His jungle seems to be quite a bit stronger than top lane just because of... It seems that people don't respect the ability he has to just run them down and they just overextend lanes. It's very difficult to play against the Volibear if you're not using your brain. Zoe, I don't think this champion's really worth picking. They're buffing up her damage again, but she's already a really high skill cap champion. It's the same boat as Azir and Ryze, where you just, if you don't already play the champion, don't bother picking them up. They're not worth your time. Sion fixed a bug that made. Okay, good. So Sion's E is going to hit less. Okay, so this was a bug where Sion's E was like impossible to miss. You could launch a minion and it would hit somebody and it would be too big. Like you couldn't avoid it if it was even like remotely placed in the right area. So they're nerfing that. So Sion was the highest win rate and one of the highest play rate champions. It was like 54% win rate and 18% play rate or something in top lane. And this nerf, if it's probably going to matter. He's probably going to experience some significant decrease in win rate if the hitbox is decreased large enough. Banner of Command. This item was abused by champions like Sion, who would go Abyssal Mask and Banner of Command, as well as other tanks and the jungle or support role as a replacement to Locket. We knew going that last patch that our change to Hand of Baron. Doubles. Banner of Command's damage multiplier against turrets no longer stacks with the identical multiplier Hand of Baron. Okay, so they don't like that Banner is destroying siege towers in 8 turret hits. I think that's stupid. I think you should have games closed out, when they get Baron. Make it really important that you get to that 20-minute point and you get the Baron fight. Basically, they're nerfing the strategy where you can just break open any base when you get Baron and have Banner of Command. Okay, I think this kills the strategy that showed up about the Baron Banner of Command on the siege minion, because there's no point in giving them more damage now. But it probably won't matter. Just don't build this item anymore. Banner of Command had its little 5 days of glory, and then it was nerfed. Enchantment Center Hulk, nothing changes. Skarner and Zac are still the best junglers right now. Warwick is up there too. Volibear is up there. You know, them all losing a little bit of health just makes them a little easier to deal with, but it's not going to make, you know, Kha'Zix the best jungler or Evelynn the best jungler. So nothing really changes with tanks just because Cinderhulk is touched here. Hextech GLP is getting a little higher base damage and a little higher slow. I don't think it matters. Hextech GLP is getting overshadowed by Ludens as well as Archangel Staff. There's not really any champion that would want to build this. I thought earlier that LeBlanc would build it, but no, she still just goes Gunblade. Warmogs. This nerf plus the percent health increase modifier nerf is going to make it to where champions like Zac can't just go Cinderhulk into Warmog's armor. I imagine, just doing the rough math in my head, you can't go Cinderhulk and then Warmogs and get the 2750 health you need. You're going to have to get an extra health crystal or something. And that'll make Zac specifically a lot less oppressive, but it won't really affect anyone else in the game. I think this is just the Zac nerf that they did, just like they did a Skarner nerf, because those two champions were like really, really strong. Because Cinderhulk plus Warmog Zac was actually impossible to deal with, because even if you chunked him down really low, he'd just go back over a wall and then regen it all back with Warmog's armor, slingshot back into your lane, and now you have to deal with it again. And you know, now you don't have your summoners. Turrets. Okay, so the last patch, they removed that 5 damage you get against minions. So now what they're doing is they're just making it easier to last hit the minions, right, through the turrets. The turrets are going to, you know, make the minions easier to last hit. That's going to be really nice across the board, just a really feels good change. So it's going to be easier to last hit under turret. It's going to be, right now, there's a point where, especially like mid laners who don't build attack damage, they reach a point pretty early into the game where it takes 2 auto attacks to kill a melee minion. Normally you just need 2 tower shots and then 1 auto attack, but there reaches a point when you need 2 auto attacks on that melee minion, which is awkward, you know. And if you're not, it just feels bad, and to have to like try hard to get your melee minions, and they're just taking that away, make the game feel a lot nicer. So I like this. Cloud buff changes. It's going to give percent movement speed tripled while out of combat. That's actually so good, right? Like it used to just be out of combat movement speed. Now it's going to have some in combat stat, and it's going to be tripled while out of combat. So it's going to be 6% movement speed per dragon. That's going to be the strongest dragon. Like, it'll be up there with fire, right? Especially for early pressure. If you're playing like a roamer or just in general, having movement speed even in combat is a good combat stat, you know, because you might be able to dodge abilities with that, as well as getting, you know, 6% movement speed, even just 1 wind dragon, right? You know, that's insane actually. So wind dragon is definitely going to be like, you're going to see a wind dragon, you're going to want a wind dragon, you know. Early game, if you're playing Nunu, the best thing you can hope for is there's a water dragon. Second best, probably the cloud dragon. Later on, and then third best, the fire dragon, and then the mountain dragon. But they're all like a lot closer now, just because the water dragon gives everybody sustain, and it gives you like pretty much gives you something like 1/3 of a health pot and 1/3 of a mana pot running for everybody in every lane constantly. So that's completely broken to get a water dragon early on. But then the wind dragon, everybody's going to be able to get back to lane faster, plus also they can roam. You know, you have roaming support, which isn't a good strategy right now, but like the jungler is able to rotate a lot faster, as well as everybody's moving faster in combat. It's just going to be a lot. Like, this is actually the 2% bonus movement speed is like old Janna passive, which they had to nerf. So I think it's good just because it gives in combat stats now, as well as it gives even stronger effect out of combat than it did before. So it's just really overall very good. Probably the second best dragon, and you definitely want to contest this one over a fire dragon and over a mountain dragon early on. Precision, they're making precision domination better. These don't really matter. They're just equalizing it across sorcery and precision, so you don't have to think about it anymore. Press the attack is getting a buff. I think this is really nice. I didn't like when they removed the percent, the 12%. Because it made champions like Lucian, who want to get more damage, you know, after the triple hit and stuff, do even more. So I think I've been playing a lot of Xayah, and I prefer press the attack, and even having more percent damage when you know, get your 3 hits and you want to pull your feathers back is going to be really nice. And then fleet footwork for ranged champions, the healing is going to get reduced on minions by half. So this is going to make it to where poking is going to be a lot better than it was before, as well as healing supports are going to be a lot better than it was before. What this means, actually, I predict, you know, there's going to be a meta shift for bot lane where people are going to go back to running press the attack because it's really good. Or they're just going to, some people, of course, are going to keep running fleet footwork that use it really well, like Vayne likes fleet footwork a lot because of the movement speed utility it gives, and Xayah kind of likes it, you know. But I think generally a lot of the champions are going to go back to press the attack because the sustain here might have been hit too hard. Now, it might not have, but it probably was hit too hard to where you can just go for a damage mastery and be fine. The thing about fleet footwork, though, is it allows you to not have to go a lifesteal item, which can be pretty powerful. But most likely what happens is people go press the attack and they start taking the lifesteal legend thing instead of the attack speed legend thing. That's what's been working for me, and I think that's probably what's going to change. No more fleet footwork, just from press the attack, and then go legend bloodline instead of legend alacrity. Aftershock's getting nerfed. This is mostly gonna be a nerf to the champions who need it, right? This is a nerf to Volibear. It's a pretty decent hit to Volibear. He already got hit earlier. It's also a nerf to all of the top laners that were running it. You know, you could even see that Pantheon's running Aftershock, Riven's running Aftershock, just so they can get really good trades because they don't take any damage. But this is also going to be a nerf to, you know, Shen. It's going to be a nerf to Alistar. All those supports that, you know, needed the tankiness there. Well, it's a nerf because, you know, now you have to wait an extra 15 seconds, right, before you can go in again. And for Alistar having to wait 35 seconds as opposed to 20 seconds, here he could get Aftershock 2 times per wave. Here he can only get it less than 1 time per wave. You know, like, that's a big difference. Yeah, nothing else matters.